In the final days of the Second World War, as the world watched the Third Reich crumble, a critical moment of revelation took place behind the walls of a German prison. There, William Nitze, a member of the American intelligence community, conducted an interrogation that would change everything. His subject, Albert Speer, the architect turned armaments minister of Nazi Germany. What he learned from this conversation would forever alter the understanding of how war is won, not just by tactics or technology, but by industrial might. Today, we'll tell you how an American officer's questions led to the realization that America's production capabilities were the decisive factor in winning the war. Scene transitions to archival footage of post-war Europe, broken buildings, and war-torn streets. This is the story of how Albert Speer, once trusted by Hitler to oversee Germany's war effort, revealed the truth that even the Nazis could no longer deny: the incredible power of America's industrial production. Scene 1. The man behind the machine. Cut to a still photo of Albert Speer, stern and composed in Nazi uniform. Albert Speer, the man known as the Nazi Minister of Armaments, was responsible for ensuring that Germany's war machine continued to churn out weapons for the Reich. A brilliant architect and a trusted confidant of Hitler, Speer was instrumental in organizing the production of tanks, planes, and ammunition. Under his watch, Germany's industrial output had skyrocketed. But despite his best efforts, the tide of war was turning against the Nazis. Cut to archival footage of German factories producing tanks, artillery, and military supplies. As the war intensified, Speer's task grew ever more daunting. The Allied forces were closing in from all sides, and Germany was struggling with shortages of materials, manpower, and critical resources. Speer was no stranger to the pressures of war, but even he had to admit something was terribly wrong. Scene 2. Nitze's interrogation. Show a dark, grim interrogation room with Speer seated at a table, hands clasped in front of him. Across from him, William Nitze, an American officer, stands with documents in hand. By the spring of 1945, Germany's collapse was imminent. Speer was captured and held by the Allies. William Nitze, an American intelligence officer, was tasked with interrogating him. Nitze's goal wasn't just to gain military intelligence, but to understand the true scope of Nazi Germany's industrial efforts. What Nitze didn't expect was the shocking revelation that would change the course of the war. Cut to Nitze speaking to Speer, leaning over a table filled with maps and documents. Nitze's questions were pointed and methodical, but Speer's answers were often laced with resignation. How much longer could Germany's war industry last? Nitze asked. Speer paused, the reality of defeat beginning to sink in. Cut to a close-up of Speer, looking weary and distant. The truth, Speer said slowly, is that we were running out of everything: oil, steel, labor. Even our best tanks, like the Tiger, couldn't overcome the shortages. And meanwhile, the Americans were producing tanks at an unimaginable rate. We could not compete with that. Scene 3. The revelation. America's industrial power. Cut to archival footage of American factories in full swing. Massive assembly lines with workers assembling tanks, aircraft, and trucks. It was in this moment of confession that Speer revealed the extent of what had troubled him throughout the war. The sheer scale of American industrial production. The Nazis had designed and built some of the most advanced weapons in the world, but the Americans had something far more powerful: the ability to produce these weapons in overwhelming quantities. Cut to black and white footage of B-17 bombers flying over Europe and factories producing military vehicles. For the first time, Speer acknowledged the staggering difference in production numbers. At the peak of our production, he admitted, we could build perhaps 500 tanks a month. But the Americans, they were producing 2,000 a month. And not just tanks. Aircraft, trucks, bombs, ships, they had the capability to outproduce us at every turn. Cut to archival footage showing American trucks and tanks rolling off assembly lines. It wasn't just the numbers. It was the speed. The Americans were able to identify weaknesses in their war effort and solve them quickly. They adapted faster than anyone could have anticipated, and their factories never stopped. As Speer spoke, Nitze was struck by a chilling realization. Germany could not win this war by merely relying on technological superiority. The Americans had them beaten on a far more critical front: industrial capacity. Scene 4. The crushing reality of American production. Cut to archival footage showing Speer's face, his eyes heavy with the weight of what he was admitting. Nitze pressed further, asking, "How long did you believe Germany could keep up with the Americans?" Speer's answer was somber. "As long as we could make the best weapons, we thought we could outlast them. But we were wrong. The Americans didn't need the best weapons. They needed enough weapons. And they could produce them in such quantities that even our best efforts were meaningless." Cut to footage of German forces retreating, bombers being shot down by Allied fighters. Speer's words were an admission of defeat, not on the battlefield, but on the production line. The Germans had designed weapons like the Tiger tank, which could take on anything the Allies threw at it. But the Americans could build 10 times as many tanks, aircraft and trucks, and keep them coming faster than the Germans could destroy them. Scene 5. The end of the war, a realization of industrial warfare. Cut to a shot of Allied forces advancing through Germany, soldiers marching, tanks rolling through streets filled with rubble. By May of 1945, Germany had surrendered. The war was over in Europe. Nitze, having gained valuable insights into Germany's collapse, was left with a sobering understanding of modern warfare. It wasn't about the best weapons or the most skilled soldiers. It was about who could produce the most and who could sustain that production for the longest. And America had proven it could do both. Cut to American soldiers raising flags, victory in the streets. The American war machine, with its unprecedented industrial might, had outlasted and outproduced Nazi Germany. And the same would prove true in the Pacific against Japan. Speer's interrogation had revealed the final truth. America's industrial capacity was the deciding factor in the outcome of World War II. Cut to black and white footage of a factory working tirelessly in the heart of America, workers producing tanks and military supplies. In the end, the Nazis were defeated not just by superior technology or strategy, but by an industrial powerhouse that could churn out endless supplies of war material. It was a truth that Speer had learned too late, but it would forever change the way war was understood, as much a battle of factories as it was a battle of armies. Fade to black, end screen showing related video links. This is your script with all bold removed. If you need any further adjustments, feel free to let me know.